Thank you very much. My name is Ayoti. This is EaglesTracker, the home of Nigerian footballers. We have another guest for us today. We have a Super Eagles legend and a footballer that I'm sure a lot of you on our channel are very familiar with now at this point. Please introduce yourself to us, Super Sam.
Hey, my name is Sodje, ex-footballer, ex-Nigerian international.
Yes. So, Super Sam, thank you once again for honoring us with your presence on our channel. So, first of all, I want to ask you this question about, the grassroots part of your phase. When you were chasing that dream, when you're chasing that goal, that you had it in your mind that I want to be a footballer, what are the biggest challenges or one or two of the biggest challenges that you faced in terms of just taking that step towards being a professional footballer?
I think I grew up in a home where sports was really encouraged. I was lucky enough to have a couple of brothers who did sports. My older brother who played football, so it wasn't as bad for me, even though my parents wanted me to go to school. As normal African parents. But yeah, I knew I had talent. It was something. Remember when I found out that I wanted to be a footballer, and then I ended up playing football.
So was there anything that made you doubt the possibility of your dream coming true? Because like you said, you had footballers who have kind of paved the way for you. But one thing about life is that everybody's path in life is different. So even if you have 10 footballers that are your brothers, it does not mean that you're surely going to be a footballer. So was there anything that created just some kind of element of doubt in your mind, even with all this support?
No, even though, to answer your question, even though you have 10 million brothers that wants to be a footballer, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough, Even though you're good enough, if you don't have it, you might not make it. But as I said to you before, so many times I spoke to you, growing up, I was a little bit arrogant about my ability. I was a bit arrogant about myself in a very good way. So, no, I didn't have any doubts. From a very young age, I knew who I wanted to be. I thought I should be playing in Real Madrid when I was like 7 years old. So I had that kind of arrogancy about my ability, and I was pretty good. And that made me feel I could do it. So I had no doubt at all. I knew where I wanted to be. I probably before I should be more than where I was. But yeah, I was brilliant when I was playing younger. I was very good. I grew up in a town where football was bread and butter, which is Warri in Nigeria. So I really, even though I was born in London, I grew up in a very hard city. But yeah, growing up was, I had a little bit of arrogance about my ability, so I didn't have any doubts.
Okay, my next question for you. The day that you signed that first professional contract, one thing that we know is that I'll say the feeling, for most people is largely the same, joy, happiness, that kind of stuff. But how did you react? What did you do? Who did you call? Did you celebrate? How did you react when you signed that first professional contract and you had achieved this dream, this goal of becoming a pro footballer?
When I do interviews, I try to, get that a little bit, so I don't sound over arrogant, because football's over now. Yeah, so I try to seduce it a little bit, so it doesn't come out wrong. But from a very young age, like I said before, I thought I should be pro since I was 12 years old. So it wasn't a big deal me signing a deal. And the way I went into being a professional, it was already late for me. I was going to be a professional 10 years ago. So when I signed the deal, I didn't need to call anyone. I knew this is where I want to be. And it was a good step for me. Well, I ain't going to lie to you. The happiest time of my life, of my career, was when I first signed that professional contract, because then people will pay money to come and watch you play. And now you want to be a professional. And it just showed that my hard work has paid off. But to answer your question really quick is it wasn't a big deal. It was more of it's about time for me, So I'm trying not to be too arrogant, though. But that was really what it was.
I like it. I like the arrogance for sure. Yeah, I have no issues. Other people might have issues, but personally, I have no issues.
I hope they don't.
Okay. Now being a professional footballer, what would you say was the lowest moments of your career? I think you've told me before, but for the purpose of this, interview, or maybe I'm wrong. What would you say was the moment where you got to a point in your career and you just felt like not that everything was going away or whatever the case may be, but you just felt like, oh, now I have a lot of work that I need to do all over again, to get myself to the point where I was before?
Yeah, I think I've told you before. People will be surprised. Things that happened in my career that people will think, "Oh, it must be that," but no. I think it was when I got injured. I think it was when I got injured. I think when I got injured early, and I thought I would have gone all the way, proper all the way. My injury came so early, but I still played another 8 to 10 years with the injury. But yeah, I would say the downside of my career, regardless of what happened, I won't be who I am today if what happened in my career didn't happen. So I'm pleased, I'm delighted for everything that happened. But I think the downside was definitely when I got injured with my knee. It made me not really push to get to where I really want to get to, especially not playing too many games for my country. I didn't like that, but it was down to my injury.
And for you, how did you help yourself to overcome that phase? I mean, injuries are physical, but we know that for footballers, they can also have that mental, mark that lives on you. So just very quickly, how did you overcome that injury?
I think you just answered the question. I was no joke in dates. I'm mentally tough, very very tough mentally, and I think that was what helped me. I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it properly. So I trained harder, stayed in the gym more, trained legs more, and I really wanted to play. And I went on to play for 8 years. So yeah, I was really really mentally strong. I am still, growing up in a very tough home. Tough place and having so many brothers in a big house, you have to be mentally strong. So yeah, what got me through that downside was mentally, I'm tough. I'm still tough mentally now. So I think that helped me.
Amazing to hear. And what would you say was the highest moment in your football career, your playing days? The moments that even if somebody, God, whatever the case, came and said you have to remove everything that you've done except one thing that will stay on the record book, what was that one thing that you will make sure everybody still remembers?
Just the kind of player I was, just the kind of guy I was. I was a never say die kind of guy, and I think no matter what you do, you can't take it away from once you mention my name. People will always tell you about the way I played. I played like it was always my last game. People always tell you that, and I think that's what people remember me of. And I think it goes down to the way I live my life now, because at the end of the day, things happen, and it depends on how tough you are. And I think that's how I play my game. The way I live my life is the way I play my football, and I'm not even going to push anyone to remember me that way. I think that's how they're going to remember me. Tough guy, never say die, never gives up. And never gave up. I just kept going until the last day of my career. And I think that's how I'm going to live my life, and that's how people are going to remember me.
Amazing. And my final question for you, and I put this question for you because I know that you're someone that is still involved, in different things after playing football. So I want to phrase this a little bit different. How do you get yourself to continue to dream even after playing football? Because, at some point, to be a professional footballer was your main dream, was what you wanted to achieve. And then you got to that stage. And some people get to a stage and they settle, they feel like, oh, I've arrived. What else is there for me to do? How do you get yourself to continue to dream even after achieving one goal?
It's tough. Life outside football is tough, especially when you play to the highest level. It's really hard to leave football and say you want to do something. But just the way you asked the first question, what was my downside? I think my downside turned out to be very good to me, because I got injured really quick. So I knew not long now I'll stop playing. So I started planning for what I was going to do. And I always tell every player that still plays, young players, you have to find something that interests you, like the way you love football. And I think I found something that I like, and that's how I managed to get my life after sport together. But yeah, it was what happened to me that looked like it was a bad thing. It turned out to be a blessing, because it made me plan earlier enough to be able to know what I was going to do after football. Went back to school, went back to educate myself about what I want to be because of my injury. So I won't say I have any downside, because my downside has turned out to be good side to me.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much for that answer. And then finally, this is not a question, but for anybody that's watching this video that has a goal, that has a dream, that has something that they would like to achieve, whether in football, in life, in school, what's your advice to them? What's your message to them?
That's why I do now. I talk to a lot of young kids, whether it's sports, whether it's football, in school. I always tell them, you have to be realistic about who you are. You know, everyone wants to be Messi. Everyone wants to be the richest man in the world. But you have to be realistic of who you are. And when you're realistic about who you are, you drive toward that direction. You will become the best that you can be, and not someone else, and not someone you plan to be, or someone you dream to be. You be yourself. So the advice to young kids or young people growing up: be realistic. Be realistic of who you are. You know, if you're very good in academic, do that. If you're very good in doing something else, do that. Don't let someone else tell you who you are, and you just have to push. Never give up, because nothing comes easily. So it's up to you to push. I know it's not easy. So I'm not saying this because I've got that attitude. I'm saying this, you know, for yourself to be able to dig in deep and make sure you know who you are. You know, I'm not Messi, I'm not Ronaldo, but I'm a professional footballer. I'm Sam Sodje, so I've ended up to be Sam Sodje. And I think that's the best advice I can give young kids.
Thank you very much for that advice. I think it's amazing, Super Sam. And thank you very much for your time as well, and for joining and taking part in this campaign. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Always a pleasure.